The crowd pulsed like a single, restless heartbeat. Announcements echoed through the train station, names, numbers, destinations, but all she heard was the thundering rush of her own pulse. Maya stood near platform 9, fingers clutching a small brown suitcase that had once belonged to her mother. Its leather edges were worn, its handle cracked, and her grip left faint tremors along the brass latch. She told herself it was just the cold, but it wasn't. The wind slipped through the station doors, carrying with it the faint smell of rain and metal. Strands of her hair brushed her lips as she looked up, searching. People blurred past her, laughing, crying, rushing toward lives she couldn't touch anymore. Then she saw him, Ethan. He stood at the far end of the platform, near the vending machine, his coat unbuttoned, a red scarf fluttering around his neck, the same one she'd knitted for him 2 winters ago. He didn't see her yet. He was looking at his phone, his jaw tense, his eyes flicking between the clock and the empty tracks. For a moment, Maya couldn't breathe. The world stilled around her, like time itself had forgotten how to move. Her feet wanted to run. Her heart wanted to speak. But all she did was stand there, watching the man who had once promised her forever and had broken it with silence. The overhead speaker crackled. Train 217 to Hollow Creek arriving in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. She traced her thumb over the cracked face of her watch. Its glass spiderwebbed, frozen at 11:47, the moment everything had fallen apart a year ago. The moment she'd read his last message. I can't do this anymore. Now he was here. Same hands. Same quiet frown. But something was different. His eyes looked older, heavier, like he carried ghosts she couldn't name. Maya stepped forward, one hesitant movement at a time. Her breath caught on every exhale. People brushed past her, their coats grazing her sleeve, their lives intersecting hers for only a second before fading away again. When he finally looked up, their eyes met. The world didn't stop, it shattered. He blinked, a flicker of disbelief, then guilt. The scarf shifted with the wind, red against the pale blur of morning light. She wanted to say his name, to close the distance, to ask the one question that had burned her awake for months. Why? But before she could, the train's horn screamed through the station, slicing the air between them. Ethan turned. The scarf slipped from his neck, twisting midair before landing near her feet. Maya bent to pick it up, her fingers trembling, her throat burning with everything she never said. When she looked up again, he was gone. And the train doors were closing. The scarf still held the faint scent of cedar and smoke. Maya pressed it to her chest, feeling the soft wool tremble against her heartbeat. Around her, the station carried on, voices rising, laughter echoing, footsteps scattering, but all she could hear was the low hum of a train fading into the distance. She sank onto the nearest bench, suitcase by her feet, the cracked watch glinting faintly under the station's yellow lights. Its frozen hands mocked her, stuck in the same minute life had chosen to stop moving. A child nearby ran into his father's arms, laughter spilling through the air like something holy. Maya smiled faintly, though her eyes stung. Every reunion around her felt like a quiet reminder of what she didn't have anymore. Her fingers brushed over the suitcase again, tracing its old scratches. She remembered the day her father gave it to her, a dusty afternoon filled with sunlight and promises. You carry this with pride, Maya, he'd said, adjusting his cap, his hands rough from work. Wherever you go, remember you're strong enough to come back on your own. She'd been 16 then, full of belief and unbroken dreams. That suitcase had carried her through university, her first apartment, her first heartbreak, and now the station. It was more than leather and brass. It was everything she'd held on to when people left. A sigh escaped her lips. The last year had been a blur of quiet survival. Late rent notices tucked beneath the door. Calls gone unanswered. Nights spent counting coins for bus fare. She told herself she was fine, that she didn't need anyone. But seeing Ethan again had shaken that lie loose. She tilted her head, watching the crowd dissolve around her. A man, a stranger, stood a few meters away, leaning against a pillar, eyes fixed in her direction. He wasn't hiding it, nor was he intruding. Just watching. His stillness was deliberate, like he knew something but wasn't ready to say it. Their eyes met briefly. His expression didn't change, but there was something curious, almost sympathetic beneath the calm. She looked away first, unsure why her chest felt suddenly tighter. The loudspeaker broke the silence. Next train to Hollow Creek delayed by 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Enough time to think. Too much time to feel. Maya stood, clutching the scarf and suitcase, torn between leaving and waiting. The platform had emptied, the hum of movement replaced by still air. Somewhere down the corridor, footsteps echoed, slow, measured, coming closer. She turned instinctively, expecting no one, yet hoping it might be him. The scarf slipped again from her hand, brushing the ground. She bent to pick it up, then froze. Someone had stopped beside her suitcase, and when she looked up, the stranger was closer now, his gaze steady, unreadable, and filled with something she couldn't yet name. The train lights flickered in the distance. Her breath caught. She didn't move. The air shifted, heavy, damp, like the sky was holding its breath. Maya looked up. The stranger stood close enough now for her to see the faint lines beneath his eyes, the frayed collar of his coat, the mud clinging to the edges of his worn shoes. He didn't speak, just nodded slightly, as if acknowledging her silence. "You dropped this," he said finally, his voice low, careful. He held out the red scarf, folded neatly between his hands. Her fingers brushed his as she took it, cold against cold. For a moment, neither of them moved. Somewhere outside, thunder murmured, distant but coming closer. "Thank you," she managed, tucking the scarf back into her coat pocket. He gave a faint smile, almost apologetic. "You were waiting for someone." She hesitated. "I thought I was." The words hung there, half confession, half goodbye. He nodded slowly, eyes flicking toward her suitcase. "It looks like it's been a long road." She followed his gaze. The suitcase sat between them like a quiet witness to her years of running. Too long, maybe. The lights above them flickered. A gust of wind swept through the station, carrying the smell of rain and rust. It made the cracked watch glint again, catching his attention. "That doesn't work, does it?" he asked softly. Maya shook her head. "Stopped a year ago. I kept it anyway." He smiled faintly, not with pity but understanding. "Some things are worth keeping broken." His words settled deep inside her, unsettling something she'd worked hard to bury. For the first time, she looked at him closely, really looked. His hands were rough, a faint burn mark trailing across his right wrist. When he reached into his pocket for a coin, a small photograph slipped out, landing near her foot. She bent down, picking it up before he could. A faded picture of a young girl, maybe 8 or 9, smiling with missing teeth beside a woman in a hospital gown. The edges were creased, the ink almost gone. His face tightened. "She's gone," he said quietly, taking the photo back. "Both of them." Something cracked inside her. Different stories, same ache. The same kind of emptiness that doesn't announce itself but sits quietly in your chest, waiting for a moment like this to be seen. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder, tapping against the metal roof like an impatient heartbeat. She wanted to say something. Comfort, apology, anything, but the words refused to come. Instead, they just stood there, watching the reflection of the rain blur the world outside. A distant whistle echoed down the tracks. "The next one's coming," he murmured. Maya tightened her grip on the suitcase. Her heart urged her to stay. Her mind told her to leave. When the train lights appeared through the downpour, she still hadn't decided. The rain had softened to a mist, weaving silver lines across the glass panels of the platform. The air smelled of wet iron and coffee. Maya stood by the pillar, the suitcase at her side, watching the stranger through the fogged reflection of a station window. He hadn't moved far. He stood near the vending machine now, head bowed, turning something in his hand, her cracked watch. She hadn't even noticed she'd left it behind when she sat down. For a heartbeat, she thought of walking away, leaving the watch, the station, the memories behind. Just one step forward, and she could disappear into the noise. The train schedule blinked above her head. 11:47 delayed. The same frozen minute on her watch. A cruel circle she couldn't seem to break. A woman nearby whispered to her husband, glancing toward Maya. "She's been standing there for nearly an hour," the woman murmured, not unkindly but with that tone people use when they're thankful the story isn't theirs. Maya tightened her grip on the suitcase handle. Her knuckles whitened. She felt the burn of all the eyes that saw her as a scene, not a person, Another woman waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. The stranger looked up and caught her gaze. He raised the broken watch slightly, rain dripping down his sleeve. "You should keep this," he said softly when she approached. His voice carried through the hush between trains. She hesitated. "It doesn't work anymore." He smiled, the kind of smile that trembles before it fades. "Neither do some people. But they still matter." Her throat ached. She reached out, fingers trembling as she took the watch from his palm. The cold metal felt heavier than before, like time had soaked up everything she tried to forget. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the rain filled the silence. Somewhere, a child was crying, and an old man muttered about the delays. Life moved on around them, careless and cruel in its indifference. "Some people carry more than just bags," he said finally. "They carry silence." Her breath caught at the truth of it. She wanted to tell him about Ethan, about the text, the scarf, the sleepless nights that turned into years of pretending. But her voice betrayed her, breaking into the quiet. "And what do you carry?" He looked away, eyes unfocused, like he was watching something only he could see. "Regret," he said simply. The station lights flickered, reflecting on the puddles between them. Maya's chest tightened as the train began to pull in, its headlights cutting through the rain, blinding for an instant. She took a step back, ready to leave, then stopped. The scarf had slipped again, lying between them on the wet ground, bright red against the gray. Neither of them reached for it. The train doors opened, and the world held its breath. The train hissed to a stop, steam curling like ghosts around Maya's legs. She stared at the open doors, the red scarf still bleeding color onto the concrete. She could walk away right now, just step inside, sit down, and let the world blur past. But something held her still. The stranger had bent down to pick up the scarf, careful not to let it touch the puddle. He hesitated, eyes tracing the stitching. "You made this," he said quietly, almost certain. Maya frowned. "How would you know that?" He looked up, the rain streaking down his face. "Because my daughter had the same one." Her breath faltered. The sounds of the station faded into a hum. "Your daughter?" He nodded, the motion slow, pained. "She loved red, said it made her feel seen." His gaze drifted to the scarf again. "We lost her last winter. She was on her way to a job interview at Denning and Company." The name hit Maya like a jolt. Denning and Company, the company she'd applied to 2 weeks ago. The one she'd prayed would call her back, the one she'd built her fragile hope upon. She swallowed hard. I just had my interview there yesterday." He blinked, a flicker of recognition sparking in his eyes. "You're Maya Whitlock." It wasn't a question. "I read your file this morning." Confusion spiraled through her. "You read?" He exhaled softly, almost ashamed. "I'm Robert Denning." For a moment, everything inside her stopped. The man she'd seen as a quiet stranger, a mirror of her loneliness, was the person whose decision could alter her future. She stepped back instinctively, her mind racing. The weight of the cracked watch pressed against her palm, the same broken time she'd once blamed on Ethan, now ticking again in her chest for an entirely different reason. He looked at her, voice low but unsteady. "You said some things in that interview about loss and starting over." "My daughter said the same words before she left." Maya's pulse trembled. The scarf, the station, the minute frozen on her watch. It all folded back into itself, forming a loop she couldn't escape. "Some things are worth keeping broken." His earlier words echoed with cruel clarity. Her eyes stung. She could feel the point of no return pressing close, the line between past and whatever came next. "Why tell me now?" she whispered. He didn't answer, just looked at her like he'd been waiting for this moment longer than she could imagine. The whistle blew. The train doors began to close. Maya grabbed her suitcase and, for reasons she couldn't name, stepped toward him instead of away, following him through the mist into the dim corridor behind the platform. The door shut behind them, and for the first time, she didn't look back. The hallway behind the platform was dim, lit only by the trembling glow of a single bulb. The scent of rain followed them in, wet earth, iron, and memory. Maya's shoes left quiet prints on the concrete as she trailed after Robert Denning, still not sure if she was walking into a confession or a trap. He stopped near a narrow office tucked between storage rooms. The door creaked open to reveal a desk, a single chair, and a wall of old photographs, black and white faces frozen mid-smile. Among them, a little girl in a red scarf. Robert's voice was barely above a whisper. "That's Lily, my daughter." Maya stepped closer, her throat tightening. The resemblance was uncanny, the same wide, searching eyes, the same hesitant smile she'd seen in the photo he dropped earlier. But what struck her most was the scarf. It wasn't just similar, it was the same pattern she'd knitted for Ethan years ago. Her voice trembled. "Where did she get that?" He looked at her, something unreadable behind his tired eyes. "From a thrift store." She said it felt like it had stories in it. His hand brushed against the red scarf now resting in hers. "I think she found yours." The world blurred for a second. Maya's heart ached, not from coincidence but connection, threads weaving lives that were never supposed to meet. "She died wearing it," Robert continued. "The rescue team returned it to me. I didn't know how to let go, until I saw you standing on that platform, holding the same piece of red against the rain." Maya swallowed, her voice barely steady. "You thought I was her." "I wanted to," he admitted. "For a moment, I believed she'd come back through someone else." The truth settled like ash between them. It wasn't love that drew him in. It was grief searching for reflection. Maya placed the suitcase down, the cracked watch gleaming under the light. "You said some things are worth keeping broken," she whispered. "But maybe not this." She set the watch on the desk beside Lily's photo and slowly wrapped the red scarf around its base, a quiet offering of letting go. Robert's eyes glistened. He nodded once, understanding. "You're still getting that job," he said softly. "Not because you remind me of her. Because you remind me that time, broken or not, can still move forward." Outside, the train roared past, shaking the glass. Maya turned toward the sound, the reflection in the window showing a woman no longer waiting, but leaving. The same platform, the same storm, but her place had changed. She picked up her suitcase, lighter now somehow, and walked toward the open door. Behind her, Robert's voice echoed faintly, "Thank you for bringing her back for a little while." Maya didn't look back. As she stepped into the rain, the world felt both emptier and fuller. Not every stranger you help is meant to stay, but some leave you changed forever. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the streets washed clean, the sky pale and fragile as porcelain. Maya walked along the narrow lane that led from the station, her suitcase rolling quietly behind her. Each wheel turn sounded like a heartbeat she no longer feared to hear. The world felt different, lighter, though she couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the way the light hit the puddles, or how her reflection in them no longer looked like someone waiting. When she reached her small apartment, the clock on the wall ticked softly, alive, unlike the one she'd left behind. She placed her suitcase near the door and, for a moment, just stood there, breathing, listening. The red scarf wasn't with her anymore. Neither was the cracked watch. Both had found their resting place in that dim office, beside the photograph of the girl who would never grow older. And yet, she didn't feel like she'd lost anything. On the table, her phone buzzed. A message from Denning and Company. "We look forward to working with you, Maya." She smiled faintly, though it wasn't triumph she felt. It was peace, a quiet understanding that some paths begin with endings disguised as heartbreak. She moved to the window, watching people pass by, couples laughing, strangers hurrying, a mother tying her child's shoe. Life kept going. It always did. She'd spent so long fighting against its rhythm, trying to freeze time at 11:47, where pain made sense. But now she let it move. Her father's voice came back to her, as gentle as it was the day he gave her that old suitcase. "You're strong enough to come back on your own." She whispered into the stillness, "Maybe I never left." Later that evening, she opened the small drawer near her bed. Inside lay a single photograph, the one she'd taken of Ethan years ago, before everything fell apart. His smile was still there, faint and far away. She touched the corner lightly, then slid it deeper into the drawer and closed it with care. "Sometimes love is not romance," she murmured, repeating the line Robert had said before she left, its recognition. The words lingered in the room like the fading scent of rain. Neither comfort nor sorrow, just truth. Outside, the city lights flickered to life, blinking softly through her curtains. Maya sat on the edge of her bed, her hands resting in her lap, her reflection calm in the window. For the first time, she didn't need to look back. She just watched the world move, knowing she was finally part of it again.